Get comfortable with English in comfort. This is your English listening practice podcast to help you learn and improve naturally.
Hey everyone, welcome to English in Comfort.
This is the podcast where you can relax, learn English, and just enjoy listening. Whether you're lying down, drifting off to sleep, or just taking a break, we're here to keep you company while you improve your English.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Liam.
Today we're diving into something we all deal with at some point: laziness.
We'll get into what it is, why it shows up, and, most importantly, how to work through it.
Let's start with something I think everyone's been through. Have you ever woken up and thought, this is it. Today I'm going to study or finally hit the gym? You've got all these plans, but then you just end up scrolling on your phone or staying in bed.
Oh, all the time. I'll tell myself just 5 more minutes. And before I know it, an hour's gone. You want to get moving, but it feels like your mind and body are stuck in different gears.
It's so frustrating because deep down, you know what you need to do. You've got these goals, but it's just so tempting to stay where it's easy.
And honestly, it's not just you or me. I think most people deal with this. You want to be productive, but somehow you just end up avoiding it.
It feels like you're stuck on something that should be simple, but it happens to everyone. And it's not just about being lazy. There's usually more to it than meets the eye. Let's talk about what laziness really feels like. I think a lot of people mix it up with not caring or being unmotivated, but that's not the whole picture. It's more like something's holding you back, even when you want to move forward.
Yeah, like when you just can't get started, even though you know you need to. It's not that you don't care. It's more like there's this invisible wall in your way.
And that wall looks different for everyone. For some people, it's fear, like being scared to fail or mess up. If you've tried something before and it didn't go well, it's easy to talk yourself out of trying again.
Or sometimes it's just feeling overwhelmed. When something feels so huge, you don't even know where to start, so you just don't. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and another thing is not feeling connected to what you're doing. If it doesn't feel important or meaningful, it's hard to care enough to even try.
Right, like when you're working on something that feels pointless. Even if you know it needs to get done, it's hard to find the energy to start.
So, when we talk about laziness, it's really more about what's going on underneath. Things like fear, feeling overwhelmed, or not seeing the point in what you're doing. If you don't figure out what's behind it, it's tough to get past it.
That's why understanding what's holding you back is the first step. Once you know what's really going on, it's way easier to start working through it.
When we put things off, the problem doesn't just go away. That guilt kicks in like this nagging reminder of everything you didn't do.
And that guilt can turn into shame, right? You start thinking, why can't I just do this? What's wrong with me? It stops being about the task and starts feeling like something's wrong with you.
That can really wear you down. Your confidence takes a hit because you keep doubting yourself. If it happens enough, it can get to the point where you don't even want to try anymore.
Yeah, and the longer you avoid it, the worse it gets. I've let things pile up before, and it's like this one small thing turns into a massive problem.
That's what people call the snowball effect. One missed task leads to another, and suddenly, you've got a whole mountain of stress.
It doesn't stop there. When you keep putting things off, you miss out on chances to grow. I can't tell you how many times I've let opportunities slip because I didn't feel ready or couldn't push myself to go for it.
It's also how you end up feeling. When you're stuck in that cycle, it's easy to feel like you're not going anywhere, like you're just stuck in place.
Yeah, and the longer you stay in it, the harder it feels to get out. What's worse is that it can start to feel normal, like that's just the way things are.
Once avoiding things becomes your go-to, breaking out of it feels like this huge effort.
But realizing how it's affecting you is a good first step. Once you see what it's doing, it's easier to say, all right, I've got to do something about this.
I think one of the best ways to break out of laziness is to start small. Even if it's just 5 minutes, it's still a step in the right direction.
5 minutes can feel like nothing, though. Sometimes I'll think, what's the point? But when I remind myself that doing something is better than nothing, it helps. And honestly, once I get started, I usually end up doing more.
That's the power of momentum. Even a small step can shift how you think. Instead of feeling stuck and thinking, I can't do this, you start to notice progress even if it's tiny.
What helps me the most is breaking things down. If I look at a big task all at once, it just feels overwhelming. So I ask myself, what's one small part I can do right now?
That's so true. Big goals can feel impossible if you look at them as one giant thing. But when you break them into smaller steps, each piece feels more manageable.
Like when I need to clean my apartment. Instead of thinking, I have to clean the whole place, I'll just focus on one room or even just one corner.
Exactly. And that's why routines are helpful too. When you have little habits built into your day, you don't need to rely on motivation. It just becomes something you do.
I get that, but I've always struggled with routines feeling boring. Instead, I like to mix things up. So I create systems that make things easier, like leaving my workout clothes out where I can see them. It's a small thing, but it makes getting started so much easier.
Systems don't have to be rigid. It's more about removing those little obstacles so it feels easier to take action.
Once you start moving, it's way easier to keep going. I think people wait around for motivation, but really, it usually shows up after you take that first step.
Motivation doesn't always just show up when you need it, but when you focus on taking even one small action, the rest usually follows.
So maybe the key isn't waiting until you feel ready. It's just starting, even if it's messy or imperfect. That first step is what gets the ball rolling.
One thing that really helps me focus is cutting out distractions. Like I'll turn off my phone notifications and put it somewhere I can't reach when I need to concentrate.
But for me, it's not just the notifications. Sometimes the mess around me is the distraction. I'll sit down to work and suddenly feel like I have to clean up first.
That makes sense. A cluttered space can feel overwhelming. I usually spend a few minutes tidying up before I get started on something important.
Same here, sometimes. Other times, I catch myself using cleaning as an excuse to avoid what I'm actually supposed to be doing. It's like, well, I can't start yet. The desk isn't clean enough.
Yeah, that's a tricky line. It's not about making your space perfect. It's just about setting it up so you can focus better.
Rewards can help too. They don't have to be big, just something small like taking a coffee break or watching a quick video.
Oh, for sure. Celebrating little wins is such a good motivator. When I finish a tough task, I'll treat myself to something simple, like reading for a few minutes or grabbing a snack I like.
It's funny how small things like that can make a big difference. I also try to change how I think about tasks. Instead of saying, I have to do this, I'll remind myself, I get to do this.
That's such a good mindset shift. Seeing tasks as choices instead of chores can really change your attitude. And honestly, it's important not to label yourself as lazy. Everyone has days where they feel unmotivated. It doesn't mean that's who you are.
Yeah, I've been guilty of calling myself lazy, but when I step back, I realize it's usually because I'm just tired or stressed. It's not something permanent.
Also, taking care of yourself is huge for staying motivated. Getting enough sleep, eating well, and moving around a bit can make a big difference in how you feel.
Definitely. If I've had a rough night, even the simplest things feel impossible. But if I've eaten something healthy or gone for a quick walk, I feel like I can actually get stuff done.
It's all connected. When your body feels good, your mind is sharper. Taking care of yourself makes everything else feel easier to handle.
Yeah, and when you're not running on empty, it's way easier to build momentum. Sometimes the first step is just checking in with yourself and figuring out what you need.
I think it's good to remember that everyone has moments when motivation is hard to find. It doesn't mean you're failing or that things won't get better. Small steps really do add up.
Yeah, and it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about making the effort, even when it feels tough. The key is just to keep moving forward, no matter how slow it feels.
And if you ever feel stuck, it's fine to hit the reset button. Progress doesn't have to be fast. It just needs to keep going.
Also, don't be too hard on yourself. Beating yourself up never helps, but giving yourself a bit of encouragement can make a big difference.
That's so true. We hope this chat gave you some ideas to try out. Just take things one step at a time and don't forget how much those little efforts can really pay off.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We're glad you're here, and we hope you'll tune in again soon.
Thanks, Liam. Before we end, let's go over some words and phrases that may be new or unfamiliar to you. Diving into meaning, starting to explore or focus on something in detail. Example, she's diving into a new book about history this weekend. Tempting, meaning, appealing or attractive, often in a way that's hard to resist. Example, it's tempting to watch TV instead of studying, but I have a test tomorrow. Holding back, meaning, stopping yourself from doing something. Example, he was holding back his opinion during the meeting. Move forward, meaning, to make progress or continue with something. Example, after solving the issue, we can finally move forward with the project. Kicks in, meaning, starts to take effect. Example, the coffee usually kicks in about 10 minutes after I drink it. Nagging, meaning, a persistent feeling or worry that won't go away. Example, there's a nagging thought that I forgot something important. Momentum, meaning, the force or speed of progress in something. Example, once you start, it's easier to keep the momentum going. Obstacles, meaning, things that block or make progress difficult. Example, learning a new language can have obstacles, but it's worth it. Tidy up, meaning, to clean or organize something. Example, I need to tidy up my desk before I can start working. Cluttered, meaning, messy or full of too many things. Example, his room was so cluttered that he couldn't find his keys. Thank you all. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more interesting videos. Keep practicing and keep learning English.